This is the first ever episode of the Isolated Incidents Podcast, a monthly dive into the stories that journalists have put out covering the world of the far right and the grifters that inhabit it. First came up with the idea, it was before the pandemic, so I didn't think to necessarily cover the anti-vax devotees. But as the worlds of right-wing grifters and politicians and radio hosts combine into the anti-vax world, we will be covering it, unfortunately. Okay, so first a little bit about me. I'm Zach D. Roberts. I'm an investigative journalist and photojournalist who has been covering the far right for about a decade. I followed Trump and his MAGA caravan on the 2016 campaign trail and then slid into the far right rallies of the Unite the Right in Charlottesville. My photos helped get some violent white supremacists thrown in jail. And since then, I've been going to MAGA rallies, fascist rallies, white supremacists, clusterfucks, and so many other things. And now, of course, anti-vax rallies and anti-mandate rallies, as they probably want to be called. But fuck that. As this is the first episode, we're going to be focusing on the OG conspiracy broadcaster, Alex Jones. Well, actually, that would probably be Art Bell or Bill Cooper or some John Birch Society connected loon. Last month, I spoke to journalist Brooke Binkowski, who has been tracking Jones for a while now, delving into his coverage of the Sandy Hook mass killing in 2012 for the Texas defamation lawsuit brought by family of the murdered children, his refusal to provide the requested information to the multiple lawsuits against him by parents of the murdered Sandy Hook kids, saw default judgments in Texas and Connecticut. He is currently attempting to raise $2 million to save his disinformation empire. He's even talking about selling his tank. As Brooke and I recorded quite a while before he received his January 6th commission subpoena, let me just run down what exactly is happening on that front. A letter from the commission signed by Congressman Benny Thompson has called on Jones to provide documents pertaining to his part in the organization of the rally and the subsequent march that he participated in to the Capitol. The commission cites his, quote, facilitating a donation to provide what he described as 80% of the funding. Jones used his megaphone and live broadcast to call on people during the allegedly impromptu January 6th march to head to the direction of the InfoWars guest Ali Alexander's permitted rally location on the east side of the Capitol. The commission does not seem to be claiming that he was part of the planned attack on the Capitol, but was part of the larger move on the day to march to the building. On January 6th, the broadcaster repeatedly told his listeners that Trump personally ordered him to lead such a march. The subpoena cites multiple instances on his broadcast in the lead-up to the January 6th insurrection that the rally was going to be something bigger than a goodbye for the one-term president. Former President Trump tweeted out, "Big protest on January 6th. Be there. Will be wild." In response, the loudest cheerleader for the MAGA movement responded. I'm not going to try to do an Alex Jones voice. I was trying to decide that, but I'm not going to. Okay, so he said, "But finally, Trump has done the right thing. He's calling on we the people to take action and to show our numbers. This is the most important call to action on domestic soil since Paul Revere and his ride in 1776. The time for games is over. The time for action is now. Where were you when history called? Where were you when you and your children's destiny and future was on the line? I've been on air for 27 years, and I've never reported on anything that comes close to being this huge. This is seismic." And he went on to build the conspiracy that saying, quote, "And if you allow this multinational consortium to steal our election, you have committed not just us, but yourselves to a living hell. Trump is trying to do a lot of good things, and he is our president, and he was elected." Well, his co-broadcaster, Roger Stone, the originator of the phrase "stop the steal" and mentor to already subpoenaed Ali Alexander, has also himself been subpoenaed. With the previous subpoena of Alexander and Nathan Martin, much of the Stop the Steal leadership has now been called. Stone and Jones have a record of not complying with subpoenas, obviously, and Alexander has claimed on his private Telegram channel that he will not participate in the commission. That also has gone back and forth. Just yesterday, at the time that I recorded this, Alexander has claimed that he will comply and do a private deposition. He is claiming that he's trying to make it public. There's a video explaining this on his Telegram. I won't go into much more detail, but basically he says he's too broke to do a Fifth Amendment fight, so he's going to basically make his case that there were provocateurs within the crowd and that it's not his fault, or it's not anyone's fault. It's none of the good MAGA people's fault. It's all these secret FBI agents. Yeah, anyway. So let's get to our interview. You can hear, if you want to learn more about Alex Jones, I'm not even going to attempt to go into the depths of Jones and InfoWars and the kind of world. You have to listen to the podcast Knowledge Fight. It is by far, it's by far my favorite podcast that exists to begin with, but also it's the best podcast to talk about Alex Jones and his world of extremism. There's a lot of different worlds of extremism, and there's a lot of different great podcasts out there talking a different thing. I Don't Speak German is another one. QAnon Anonymous is another one. But their work on Alex Jones is basically conclusive. Everyone goes to them, including even the lawyer for the case in Texas against Jones, has actually gone on his show and said he's a regular listener. But yeah, so we're talking to the excellent Brooke Binkowski. She is the editor of Truth or Fiction, a fact-checking news site, and she's also the former editor of Snopes, long before it kind of drifted into its weirdness. So without further ado, let's start. Kind of like, I think everybody knows who Alex Jones is, or at least they think they do, because they've seen the memes and they've seen the music video and they've seen that folk music video, which is hilarious. But who is Alex Jones?
So Alex, I think that I'm going to start with an anecdote. I worked in radio for a very long time, for at least 20 years. And I worked in FM radio, AM radio, which meant that my dating pool was also radio people, which meant that my whole life was radio. So I was one of those. And so I ended up dating this wacky DJ type, an FM guy years ago. And he would always say, just like everybody else who I dated who was on air, who I dated, or people who I knew, he would say things like, it's just a bit, because he would always do shit like, test the breasts, like shit like that, or, just dumb, sexist, misogynistic shit. Some of it was, some of this dumb, sexist shit, it's funny. Like if you're talking about boobs, like, oh, boobs are funny. Like it's dumb dude stuff, but he crossed those lines, right? Yeah. And he would say to me, this is early on, he'd be like, oh, I'm just playing a bit. It's just, this is how I am on the air. This is my first lesson in this. And so we were in a relationship on and off for maybe 5 or 6 years. And what I ended up finding out was that he was exactly like that off the air. He was exactly the piece of shit he pretended to be. They're always like this, because you can't bring out some aspects of your personality and just say that's not you. Yeah. Maybe people are different in different situations, but we're always the same person. Like different aspects of us come out, but we're always the same person. That's why I'm like all about self-knowledge as a sort of bar against disinformation manipulation. Yeah. So my experience with Alex Jones and with Rush Limbaugh and with like people like that has always been that they're exactly the fucking same. And he was exactly the fucking same. So I sat in on his deposition. Yeah. He looks over at me, he's like, who's this? And I'm like, buddy. I just smiled at him. I'm like, I am. Like, don't start with me. I ruined your day when I filed that affidavit. The day he went into that chicken place and had a meltdown, that was the day I filed my first affidavit. And I was like, yeah. So I couldn't talk about this. Like, I'm very happy to be able to talk about it now. So he was like, who's this? And I just smiled, like, and I just keep writing. I didn't say a word. I just wanted to sit in and like take notes. So I took a bunch of notes. By the way, you can find this deposition online. It's publicly available and viewable. Yes. And you can't really tell in this deposition, but there was one point. So he completely ignored me through the deposition and answered all this, he sounded like he was like talking from behind the microphone, but there was one point where he was talking about getting stabbed in the chest that he looked over at me, like stabbed in the chest. And I was like, bitch, you can't out crazy me. Like, you think you can, but you fucking can't. Like, I am way more off kilter than you are. So, you know, I could tell he was trying to intimidate me. Like, I could tell, but nothing came of it. Like, I just smiled at him and just kept taking notes. But the final thing he said, which was absolutely incredible. So he says all this shit. He starts blaming the Clinton Foundation, George Soros, you know, the Illuminati, the lizard people, like everything, his same shit, like going through his whole shtick throughout the deposition. But at the very end, they're like, okay, we'll give you the last word. And he's like, blah, 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 being railroaded. And Epstein didn't kill himself.
Yes.
and like, I looked at the lawyers and the lawyers looked at me and I was just like, okay, this is not, no, I cannot do this. I cannot laugh. So I managed to get through it. But I was just like, I mean, the guy's got a point here.
He, which I recommend if you don't want to actually watch it, because the deposition is not always, and also actually knows, Knowledge Fight always podcast did an incredible breakdown of his deposition, and also Rob Dew, is it Rod Dew or is it Ron Dew?
Rob Dew.
Rob, yeah. Rob Dew, and kind of all the associates there. My favorite is the Paul Joseph Watson one, where he's just like, yeah, this is all true. Like, this is the way we do this. Because he's like, I'm not going down with Alex.
I was exhausted for that deposition, so I didn't really like pay as much attention as I should have. And plus, it was like via Zoom or via whatever video.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was taking notes and I'm just like, wow, this guy just really does not want to be part of this shit. It's like, yep.
But how would you, if you had to do the like kind of the TLDR of Alex Jones, like who is he and what is his place in the disinformation? Which, I mean, I know a lot of people say misinformation. I think we both say disinformation, and that I think there's a distinct difference between the two.
There is a distinct difference, and don't give them the benefit of the doubt. They're disinformation purveyors. Misinformation is unintentional. Disinformation is intentional, and Alex Jones was anything but unintentional throughout. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot more I think we need to wait for, because I think there's a lot more that's due to come out. Like every Sunday night I say, oh, this week's gonna be such a shit show. And then every Thursday I'm like, this week is so fucking endless.
Remember when we all thought that once the Trump presidency was over, that it was all gonna just like, oh, cool, everything's gonna get to slow down a little bit. And it's like, yeah, no, Ali Alexander got subpoenaed today. Straka got subpoenaed. All these other things happened. And
yeah,
Paul Gosar is currently losing his mind, I think, right now on. Today he was in ranting about Arizona and everything like that during the January 6th committees, whatever it was. So yeah.
Fuck, man, it's so gross seeing these people who have so clearly gotten into power to seize it. You know, it's disgusting. And I think that all of this shit, I mean, it's just open Nazi shit now. This needs to be like, this should be a deal breaker. Like when they're spouting Nazi ideology, they should not be fucking like responsible for people. I mean, this should not be rocket science.
Well, this kind of goes into the, like, I think for so long, like I know that even like in 2014, I interviewed an oath keeper at Ferguson. He's one of the guys that was up on the sniper positions and whatever, anything. And I kind of like let it roll because I thought, we'll expose them. Let them expose themselves for who they are. And I remember one person left a comment that was just like, I'm very disappointed that you just like let this go. And it like has stuck with me forever, because I have all of these interviews of people that I've interviewed or whatever. And I release so little because I don't believe that anymore. Like it used to be, oh, well, you know, you can just let them talk and they're going to do it. And then Donald Trump got fucking elected. And because there's no one out, everybody said, let him talk. He's going to burn his own bridge. And then he built a literally an army and the number one person was, I'm trying to keep bringing it back to Alex Jones because we're going to go wide, but is the fact that, is the fact that like so many people came over from from the grifter disinformation world. I should also always add grifter into it, because there's like disinformation purveyors like Alex Jones, he's done that since 9/11, 9/11 truth and everything like that, supposed. And then, but now there's just people who straight up grifters. They'll move whatever way they go, like so Pacific and that sort of thing.
Piss boy.
Yeah. I'm surprised he has not blocked me yet, so I'm always trying to be careful.
He blocked me like years ago.
I know I'm just on a list. But
that fucking guy, dude, what a little chicken shit. Okay, so this little pussy, right, he comes after me, fucking narcs me out some shit I was saying to Tucker Carlson, so Tucker Carlson could go on the air and get me death threats for the next year. So those two chicken shits go after me. I just fucking roll with it, because like, what am I supposed to do? Got all these death threats. And then one day he's supporting Roy Moore. Yeah. And I said, oh, is that because you also like young little girls? And he blocked me. And I was like, oh, I guess I fucking touched a nerve there. I guess that's the answer, right?
Yeah, that's the one. It's always kind of telling. It's like, which one is the thing that gets you, that gets you to get the block. And then that's you find out, maybe there's something more there.
And that's why I always double down. As soon as I figure out what it is I got blocked for, I'm like, oh, there you go. Yeah. That's their trigger. That's their weak spot. I'm doing a Facebook on them. But I'm keeping notes, right? Because you can tell what pisses them off. Yeah. And you can use it against them. I've been fucking using it against them. Every time I talk about one of them, I'll like make sure, like I'll talk about Posobiec, and he's very sensitive to, accusations, or not even accusations, like people mentioning that he might be a pedophile. Yeah. Because, I don't know what kind of weird secret dark desires he has. Not my fucking, I don't even think about it. But apparently he has some, because otherwise he wouldn't have been moved to block me. And then there was, Steven Pinker like really wants to be taken seriously. Yeah. So I just call him, anything he would say, I would call him Peeve and Stinker until he blocked me. Like that. It's so.
This, by the way, this is the only way that people within this field get by in life, I think, like and stay on social media, is just by like petty, like me.
Oh yeah.
I got blocked by Meghan McCain because I would continually call her Meg, and B, cite the fact that her father actually voted for the tax increase, and like show that in the how he's not really a hero and everything like that, and not really a maverick, but even
a little bit of a maverick. Yeah, oh my god, I'm so glad she's off the air. I was so sick of seeing her dumb face. She is every single. Oh my god, she reminds me so much. Okay, god damn it, so much. But okay. I was very harassed and bullied in high school and junior high school by a bunch of Nazi kids. I didn't know they were Nazi kids at the time. Well, some of them I knew they were Nazi kids, but the rest of them later I'm like, oh yeah, I guess they were Nazis too. And they always had that fucking the women or the girls, they would always have that elaborate authoritarian hair where you have to spend 2 hours doing it and you can't move or it'll pop out of place. Mm-hmm. I always think of that as those are the Jesus freak people. Those are the authoritarian, the fascists. They always have that perfectly. And so they always had that. They always had the bitch hoop earrings that mean girls wear and the bright red lipstick. And so when I see her going, I'm the kind of person you need my father, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what kind of person you fucking are. You bullied me in high school.
Yeah. Well, unlike Alex Jones, who had, oh my God, how many, I'm trying to remember what the current number that he says of how many women he slept with in high school. But I think it's in the hundreds, if I remember correctly. Before he was 16, right. He had sex. Well, he lost his virginity, I think it was at 12, according to him.
Alex Jones said that was it to a babysitter? Everybody tells that. Every dipshit dude tells that.
I actually don't. I believe it was an older woman. We'd have to call the knowledge boy guys to get that clear. They probably.
He is proud of the fact that he was sexually assaulted as a minor by an older woman. That explains a few things about his views.
Well, he also paid for multiple abortions, and also, I mean, this is one of the wild things with Alex Jones is that because he has 3 hours a day, he almost takes every opinion possible on anything, and B, says just because he has to fill time, which is think what always gets this, which is one of the reasons I'll never go, I might or may not, I don't know, go into streaming, live streaming, because you have just hours of time to fill with talk. And that's how you get in trouble. That's how you just say whatever ridiculous thing it is. And whatever your conspiracy theory for Alex Jones, whatever your conspiracy theory of the day is, even on, Sandy Hook, which is, what the judgment, the default judgment that came down thing, which tried to
I know it's actually kind of, it's not unprecedented, but it's like, it's new. Like this kind of stuff is very rare. The judgment was extremely rare. And if he hadn't like stonewalled, I don't think it would have happened this way, but he kept doing this for years.
Explain the judgment, or not explain the judgment, but explain like the case, like very briefly, like what I think that most people for the most part know that there's been multiple lawsuits against Alex Jones and InfoWars from the Sandy Hook parents. Like why is there court cases and like kind of like very briefly, like how did we get here?
Okay, so the Sandy Hook shooting was the first time that children were killed in a mass shooting, that children were targeted. And it was shocking and awful. And just like every other mass shooting, it was immediately followed by bullshit, by disinformation, calling it a false flag and so forth. And a lot of it came from Alex Jones. A lot of it came from the NRA, which, as we found out, worked with Alex Jones and Alex Jones's like cohort. And they so it was shocking and awful. And the disinformation was there. I now know the disinformation was there specifically to keep people from reaching consensus in a solution and keep us all feeling unsafe, making sure our children felt unsafe. And what followed that was also part of making sure we felt unsafe and that our children felt unsafe. I can't help but notice that they were in schools. There's a lot of attacks on schools going on right now as well. Yeah. I can't help but think that maybe like one has to do with the other in one form or another, but hey, what do I know? Yeah. Anyway, so somebody went in and killed, I can't remember the death toll in the end. It was just dreadful. And then after that, the rumors began. So these grieving parents, they appear on television like stunned, in the first minutes or hours after they just found out their kid had been killed. And so their grief process looks odd, to people who are looking for things that look odd because they don't look like how they would have grieved. Like, you don't know how you would fucking grieve. So these parents and victims, like people who have been victimized. So this followed a pattern that had been ongoing since Columbine, at least. Yeah. Which wasn't the first mass shooting, but it was one of the first, and it was one of the most shocking ones. The first mass shooting was in San Diego at the border in San Isidro at the McDonald's. It was the McDonald's shooting. It was in 1983. And it was right after the rhetoric against the border and against Latinos and Mexicans in particular started to get really fucking gnarly in 1980, because it started in the late 70s, right? So then some batshit, unstable dude goes and blows away everybody he can find at the US-Mexico border in 1983. That was the first one that I know of. And then I think the first one was I Don't Like Mondays. That was in San Diego too. Or maybe it was the same year. I don't remember. Anyway, it was all in San Diego, which actually plays into my personal theory that it's not even a theory anymore because it's been confirmed by other disinfo researchers that San Diego and the entire border region, but especially San Diego, is a disinformation lab on which messaging gets tested about the border in particular to see what people will and will not respond to, among other things. But that's like one of them. So, sorry. See, it's all over the place. Everything's connected. It's terrible. I need that's one of the problems is almost every single conversation, not only every conversation, specifically us, because like we're having other conversations off of these podcasts, but also like anytime you talk to a extremist researcher or disinfo researcher, there's like might as well be like a pin board behind them and be like, no, seriously, this is how it works. It's so bad.
That's why respectable journalists usually look down at us and go, well, come on now.
But to be fair, those journalists are not smart and not very good at their jobs. So I'm just saying, I mean, now I can say this because for fucking years I've been saying, hey guys, I think this power grab is coming. I'm pretty sure a fascist power grab is coming, and it's going to be the border. I'm pretty sure CBP is going to be involved somehow. And by the way, there's a ton of Nazis running around. I said this for fucking 25 years because again, high school, they came after me. The border, they came after me. They come after me. I mean, if you look at me, you can see why those fucking Nazis both deeply want to fuck me and also want to kill me.
That's usually anyway, the conversations with white nationalists specifically and white supremacists around, well, what happens with so-and-so's Hispanic wife and kids? What happens when the split happens? It's always really interesting if you want to spend some time on on their websites and read the message boards about like, well, this is what's going to happen, and this is.
I already know what happens.
Yeah.
JT Ready fucking happens.
Yeah.
Remember that? Remember how he killed his whole fucking family? Remember that Nazi? No, out white supremacist. Partner was Latina. Kid Latina. Killed them all. Killed her mother, I think, and then killed himself. You know, I had seen him. I knew that guy. I'd interviewed him. I'd seen him out and about. I was like, this guy's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't say crazy because I don't mean to associate mental illness with violent shitbags. When I say, I should have said this guy's fucking unstable piece of shit. But yeah, I mean, he's an unstable, not to speak ill of the dead, but fuck him. Anyway.
No disagreements there. But yes, the Alex Jones lawsuit, Sandy Hook. We were,
Okay. So after the shooting happened, this is when the real fucking nightmare started. I mean, that was already a nightmare, but the real ongoing nightmare started. So these parents got like doxxed and outed almost immediately by fans of Alex Jones and other like 4chan denizens, just like the people who are currently like having or had a moment during the Trump administration. They are currently not having a moment. That moment has ended as of today, hopefully. Yes. And so they started doxing the parents. They started putting up photos of them, putting up their names and their addresses, and saying that they were actors, that nobody was killed, that it was a false flag, that these were all actors and dolls and fake blood. And okay, so I'd heard this for years because I used to cover mass shootings and their aftermath. And so I'd heard that false flag bullshit for ages. Like every time I covered a story, somebody would be like, oh, it's just a false flag. Or they would come up to me and say, you're a false flag. And I'd always get so infuriated because it's like, you cannot fake the smell of blood. You cannot fake grieving. You cannot fake watching somebody bleed out. I've seen people fucking bleed out and die in the gutter. You know, I've seen some shit. And just because I don't talk about it, just because I'm a smart ass and like say shit, doesn't mean I don't have 25 years. 25 years of this shit. I mean, I was a border reporter. I was a Los Angeles breaking news and crime reporter. Like, I've seen some shit. Okay, having said that, I also know very well what somebody looks like when they're dying or dead and what somebody looks like when they're faking it, because I've seen, you know, people, well, not faking it, but I've seen actors, like actual actors. The two are nothing alike. You cannot fake this shit. You know, it's just, so what they're really betraying, you know, the false flaggers are the ones who are, they're betraying, they've had very sheltered, cozy, comfortable lives in which they've never really seen widespread suffering or death. And that's great. You know, I wish that for everybody, but you can't let your ignorance be equal to my years of experience or anybody else's. Yeah. You know, one of the things that they never talk about is like how the cell phones keep ringing after people are dead. You know, there's bodies, but the cell phones are ringing because their loved ones are calling because they want to know, are you okay? Are you okay? Yeah. Like that shit leaves a fucking mark. And when somebody's denying that lived reality, when it's a kid, when you're doing it to the parents of a kid who was killed, that's disgusting. So they stalked these people. Like some of the people were just passing around information, which is bad enough, but some of them were acting on it. So this guy, Wolfgang Halbig, he is, I think he's in jail now. I'm not sure what happened to him, actually. He got convicted. But Halbig was he was very unstable. He was a former, I think, school cop. And so at first he was like, and it was really disturbing reading through his emails, because I read through some of his emails during discovery, where he was like, at first he was like kind of unstable, kind of concerned, like, oh, these kids, like, if this is true, like if somebody's like harassing these children, this is bad. And then he changed. I don't know if he like had a stroke or he just like it got to him or he hit his head or like whatever, but all of a sudden he's like, this is a false flag. These children are not dead. And then he started showing up at parents' houses, taking photos of them like through their windows and then emailing them photos and saying, I can tell that you're very happy because no child of yours is dead. And then he would send them diagrams of their child's body, like the police photos and shit, like diagrams of their kids' bodies and the bloodstains of their children, and like explain to them how this wasn't possible, that they had never had a child, their child wasn't dead. He would send multiple shit like this to people every single fucking day. This went on for 10 years or, almost 10 years. Yeah. Year after year of this. This is what Alex Jones ushered in. That's what he enabled. And that's what I really wanted to help protect the families and anybody else from. This, I mean, that's torture. This is the most appalling shit no, that's not true. Not the most appalling, but it is among some of the most appalling shit I've ever read, these emails. And that was just the shit that they accidentally put in there. Like there must be shit that's so much worse.
Well, I mean, and I think that one thing that people don't, and I've had to express this to a lot of people in my life, that they know of Alex Jones. They know like of InfoWar kind of in the same way that they know of Coast to Coast or any of these shows. And then when you tell them that, oh, no, you don't understand how huge this is. This is not some random, person. I'm also trying to not use crazy person or something like that.
I know.
But
Wackadoodle's
as a person with mental health issues, I'm also trying not to use it. But
wait. Wackadoodle, ding dong, dingus, shitbag, fuckface, shitmouth, cocksucker, and cum. Those are the ones I like to use.
Well, there goes. This is a family show, by the way. To quote Alex Jones again. Well, this is a family show, so he always says that. People don't understand just how, like, this is not just some guy with like 25 subscribers on YouTube ranting, or the guy in the street corner, on a soapbox, like losing it, talking shit.
All those people have like 1 million followers because they're getting funneled into it by fucking YouTube's algorithms and Facebook, of course.
And so, I mean, like, and this is the problem. I mean, this is also a person who Alex Jones continually has the platform of Joe Rogan, and the number one Spotify podcaster. And yes, for our radio listeners, Brooke is sticking her finger in her mouth like, but yes, it can't be emphasized enough on how big the spread is. I mean, one thing that I was noticing, like, I covered one of the anti-vax rallies at a Rochester Children's Hospital. It was a nurses' strike a couple weeks ago, and they were citing. There was like, well, there's 3 doctors on YouTube and whatever. And I'm just like, you do realize, you're telling me exactly what Alex Jones was telling his listeners a week ago. He's like, I don't listen to Alex Jones, so and I'm like, that's my point about disinformation, is the fact that Alex Jones, and like, not to give Alex too much credit, because usually one of his producers finds it on a message board somewhere, on 4chan or 8chan or 8kun or whatever the incarnation is, and feeds it in.
Yeah. So his role then basically is the role of so many others, which is disinformation launderer. And that, although in his case, I think a lot of the ways, I don't know this to be true for a fact. Okay. So now we're going into speculation territory, because there's so much I don't know. I just told you everything I do know. Yeah. But one of the things have been speculating, is that he was contradicting himself. And then, because that's just what he does. Yeah. But then it was I don't think there was any master plan to do this. I think that maybe it was leveraged into A/B testing. So whatever message the audience responds to the most is going to be the topic of the next show. And the next show, it's like the granular topic is the next one, because he also had these things called like meme contests and stuff, the meme warriors or whatever, like homebrewed. Yeah. And like the winning meme, he would like post it or tweet it. So then, like, he doesn't have to pay any money. He's A/B testing. He's like letting them A/B test themselves. I don't know a better way of saying A/B testing.
No, I mean, that's what he does. I mean, again, Knowledge Fight actually kind of says the same thing as well, which again, I can't express how, if you want to get into this world, that podcast is one of the best places to go. But because it's with 2 comedians and they're actually doing it. But is something that they express a lot, is that he's, again, I mean, there's no other phrase other than A/B testing. He's trying out one thing one day, seeing what sticks. And like, even the day when crises happen, like when you listen to, I'm trying to remember if it was Sandy Hook or if it was one of the other mass shootings, bombings, whatever. Oh, it was Boston bombing.
The daily ones?
It was the Boston bombing that he, the Boston Marathon bombing, that he actually went through 3 different conspiracy theories and then finally stuck with one at the end of the day, and that was the one that kind of like went through. And whether it be like Stevie P is what Steve Pieczenik coming on and being like, this is what I can't do a Steve Pieczenik voice.
They also like Alex Jones.
I know it is. Yeah, that's more Alex Jones than Steve Pieczenik. He's he's a little more nasally. But he would come on and kind of give off his own theory, and then somebody else would come on and give off a theory, and then he would kind of meld them all together, which again is also his it's interesting watching like that, or listening to that that day over, I think it's over like 1 or 2 podcasts on Knowledge Fight, where they boil it all down, and watching them come out with this live, because like I've been listening throughout the pandemic, and Alex Jones now has admitted that he has gotten COVID 3 or 4 times, that most of his staff has gotten COVID and been out for weeks. So he's now admitted that COVID is a real thing. It is dangerous. He's still anti-vax about the vaccines because of whatever current, conspiracy is behind the vaccinations. But he boils it all down to the fact that there is like it finally has gotten to the point that it's real, which is an interesting evolution, because originally it was real. Oh my god, Natural News guy, I forget his name, said that, you know,
Mike Adams,
civilization is over, everyone's dying, yeah, like we'll be lucky if 500,000 people survive this. And then by the end, he was also going, oh, it's not real, it's stupid to wear masks, you know, and everything like that. And they constantly move and shift around the conspiracies, which is what, you know, with Alex has done with Sandy Hook. And now he has, for the past couple of years, he's admitted, he's said that he admits it, even though he's still suspicious about it, that, oh no, it really did happen. But he's had this court cases looming over his head for the last years. What was it like day in, day out? Like, because you haven't, like, you've talked with me a little bit about it. You've sent me a clip once, which what was it like? What like, describe like what you did, what you've been doing for the last it's been a couple of years, right?
Yeah. Basically all I did, actually, you can find my affidavits. What I've been filing is basically, I just every so often I would like, I mean, not every so often, but like I would go through there were a lot of times where I would go through things that he had said and then match it to disinformation campaigns later, and just sort of like, here, this is what happened, here was my observation, you know, just expert witness stuff. So I didn't really have to do a lot of the nitty gritty stuff. It was just more like, here's what I observed during the course of my work, and here's what we can trace back to Alex Jones. Here's some stuff that we archived for you, you know, 3 years ago that he says he can't find, like that kind of thing. Because they deleted everything, right? Yeah. And we had a bunch of stuff that we'd archived in archive.org and archive.is. Yeah. Because he hadn't like excluded himself from the site. So it's like, there's a ton of stuff and other people are archiving it as well. So that maybe he didn't know about it. I don't know. So we had a bunch of stuff archived that I could draw from. And then I was just basically saying, here's my research and my experience shows that when somebody says this, it causes like somebody else to do this. Or, you know, stochastic terrorism works this way. And so it was just more like an overview meta stuff. But like some of it was, you know, I must say that there were a few days where, well, I mean, I was doing other stuff at the time. So like I had multiple reasons to feel this way, but there were a few days where I was just like, somebody's just going to come to my door and just like drag me out by my hair and like, you know, beat me to death in the street. Like, I mean, I've been thinking that for years. So I was just like, well, so if somebody does, will it be somebody associated with this case? Will it be the local Nazis I'm antagonizing? Will it be the cartels in Tijuana who I've spent like the last 10 years revealing? Would it be somebody from Facebook, or would it be somebody from, I think that might be it. Did I say DHS yet?
You know, you end up listing that sort of thing. And anytime you're working in this world that you're exposing people and their lies on a regular basis and kind of only doing it sounds, I'll say the word, it sounds crazy, but it's not necessarily. I mean, like they may not, I mean, I'm trying to remember, it's not Andy No, but friends of Andy No have been showing up at a friend of mine's house and harassing her. It is what as a person who like knows the language, knows what they're referring to, because I mean, that's one of the things. You can listen to Alex Jones, especially you can listen to Alex Jones on Joe Rogan or one of the, like, there's been like a new thing that a bunch of like people have been having Alex on, like Tim Pool platformed Alex Jones on his TikTok, and then it got yanked. And Tim Pool's going, oh my God, it's got yanked.
Can I bitch about Tim Pool for a second? I have an axe to grind about Tim Pool.
So do I, but yeah, anyway.
Mine's very petty.
Yeah.
It's the usual shit, like the disinfo shit. But one of the things that he says that really pisses me off is he calls himself the original backpack reporter. It started in 2014. Please, whatever, fucking latecomer. I was doing that shit in Anaheim. He probably stole that shit from me because I was a Santa Ana based reporter. I covered Orange County, Los Angeles, and San Diego in 2004. I was out there with my laptop that was like this thick, you know, like 2 inches thick, in my heavy backpack, doing that shit from Starbucks all over the region, very publicly. And I mean, like, he does not get to fucking say he pioneered the shit that I am the one I'm the one who did that, not
I mean,
you, Timmy boy.
there are movies about journalists doing this sort of thing over the last, like, before Tim even started. Like, I think Tim's younger than me.
Fuck you. You
yeah, no,
get
he may have like
another man
mainstreamed live streaming more than anybody else. There was definitely other live streamers, but he's a guy. I mean, like, because I was walking alongside him. I'm probably in a billion of Tim Pool's videos from Occupy Wall Street, because that's usually like, hey Tim, and then walk on. Before he went, I always feel like these people are always, there's always a seed of who they become. Like, I feel like Tim could have gone one way or gone another. There's a lot of like journalists that I know that, like, I mean, there's Matt Taibbi, there's Glenn Greenwald, there's all these people who, like, oh, there's very clearly there's a seed of what you are now before you went Substack. And
I think that's good. I think that's actually a really important thing to emphasize, because these personality traits are in all of us. Like, I have a lot of tendencies in myself that I have made a conscious effort to walk away from. Like, I'm very petty. Actually, I embrace that now. Fuck it. But I mean, I have my own susceptibility to shit. And I have chosen to try to either develop like the parts of myself that I like, or use the parts of myself that I don't like in the service of the greater good. Yeah. And we always have a choice. I mean, always. Like, I could have given into my resentment against all kinds of people for a very long time, but instead I chose to put my energy into making the world better, hopefully a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to note that all of these people always had a choice all along. They have always, at every possible
and it's not just one. I mean, Tim Pool, there was a slide. Like, I knew him personally from back in 2011. And I don't think we would ever be really friends, but like, I don't know, even colleagues, because we didn't ever work together, but like we worked alongside. And it's like, it was a series of many decisions that I watched him turn into.
Okay, remember how I like always used to hang around online people. I hung around hackers. Like, I hung around the hacker crowd. I was never one of them. I hung out with them. Yeah. So my like whole aesthetic is very informed by that. My whole ideology about information needs to be free is very informed by that. Like, the people who are in the mix right now, who are like, known, are people who I've known for probably my whole life, because I grew up online. Like, that was my world. There was one person who was in that group. He lived in the same town as me for a while. He was on all the same boards. I don't think I ever met him in real life. I don't remember. But he was kind of like a hacker, sort of folk hero type. If I say his name like after midnight, he'll appear. So I I know those people. But he was like a folk hero type who was like supposed to be brilliant. Like, nobody really knew that much about him, but he was always online, like always doing hackery shit. He was like a gray hat troll for a long time. I thought he was very entertaining, but potentially problematic. And then he got more and more problematic. And then he got put in prison. He got arrested and jailed for hacking AT&T or something, but he didn't really hack them. He did a white hat thing where he showed how they could have been hacked. And so I was like, don't put this guy in prison. It was Weave, obviously. I was like,
I was about to say, like, I know you're talking about, but
yeah. Don't put him in prison. Like, don't punish him for this. He didn't do like free weed, because it's gonna fucking radicalize him. He's already going that way, and he's gonna come out of there a fucking monster. This is what I said at the time. So I was big on the free weed bandwagon. Yeah. I also thought that like he was being punished for, exercising free speech. He didn't do anything. Yeah. So they were making it like, it was obvious that the government was trying to make an example out of him at the time, just like Aaron Schwartz, right? And it backfired, because again, what he needed at that time was intervention. He did not need to be put in prison. And now he's look at him, like, ugh. So, when Carlson and Posobiec were going after me, they dug up some old tweets of mine where I was saying free weave in 2010. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh, Brooke Binkowski is a Holocaust denier. She's an alt-left Nazi. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, when they busted out that one, I was like, I'm not even going to bother with this one. This one's such obvious bullshit. Like, fuck you. So I didn't.
No, I mean, so many, my friend, Molly Crabapple, who's absolutely amazing artist, activist. Oh, she did a lot of the art around free weave. And then that same bullshit, the disinformation that fed, and this is something that irritates the hell out of me, because it's like those assholes like Basibic start the shit, and then it feeds, the left picks it up and goes, oh, and then like you had all these people from like the Chapo kind of those kind of leftist in quotes, like that world going after people like Molly, who there's no there's like no one I know more like innocent when it comes to like, no, there's no fucking way that you think that she's like supporting it. But we
it's
all
fucking Molly Crabapple, dude. She is the best. Like going after Molly Crabapple is like fucking going after, it was like saying kittens are bad. Yeah. She's a wonderful journalist. Or I don't know what to call it, art journalist.
Yeah, she's lots of things. But she's good at all. She's very excellent at all of them. I have
actually, you know what?
Excellent art right behind me. And on the other way, by her.
She's gorgeous. You know what? Fuck her. Okay, no, I'm kidding. But no,
yes, obviously. This is a pro Molly Crabapple podcast.
Yes.
So no. But I'm sure she would also love for us to not bring this up because those things are always, but we all, I think we all end up going through that. But this is what, this is what the kind of disinformation sphere strives on, is building, whether going after James Gunn for making really bad jokes back in the day when he was a trauma director, like, for God's sakes. Pasibic also found some old jokes back in the day for James Gunn, the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy, and he got him temporarily fired from Disney. I forgot about that. There's so many of these things. It's like, it's in the thing. I'm a huge James Gunn fan of his old work and his present work. And so like that one was just like watching it spiral out from the original tweet to literally become, enter the real world. It was terrifying because I'm like, you guys, that whether or not you can decide whether or not to not like him because of this joke he made 20 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever the hell it was. That's fine. You can totally do that. Respect whatever you want to do, but know that the outrage is being fed to you by people who just want to get a liberal fired. That's all it is.
Faith bullshit. And this is what the fucking Nazis did in the 20s and 30s. Well, obviously in the 40s as well, but in the 20s and 30s when they came to Hollywood, they tried to make the US or Hollywood or LA their base. And they pulled this shit too. And then they said the Deutsche houses where they were like networking and shit, they were like, you're interfering with our free speech. Like they said the exact same shit. What you need to do is fucking laugh them out of the room because it's the same tactics, the same bullshit, and it's the same mythos. Like, why are we putting up with this? We all agree that Nazis are bad. Let's continue to agree that Nazis are bad. Like they're doing the same fucking tactics. Yeah, it's such bad faith bullshit. So when my ex-boss, David Mickelson, so for years, Kim and I, my coworker and I, Kim, noticed that he'd been like apparently like plagiarizing our shit. Like we would publish a page, but it was only the two of us. There's other people who worked there who he wasn't plagiarizing. It was the women. So we published a page, and then like 10 minutes later, a page would come up with his byline or Snopes staff or whatever.
Yeah.
And so for years, and I also knew that he had a habit of copying and pasting shit, which I thought I'd fucking taken care of when I worked there. Because he was like, oh, I just don't know journalism. I never was a journalist. I was an IT guy. So I was like, oh, okay, well, you don't do this. And then I got us like an AP like subscription so that he could copy AP and it wouldn't be plagiarism because we had an agreement. They fucked it all up, of course. So, but I thought I'd put a stop to it while I was working there. So then I get fired, I go over to Truth or Fiction, and then I noticed that Snopes has this habit of copying our shit. So I start saying shit. I noticed this in 2018, like immediately.
Yeah.
I start saying shit, nobody cares. Start saying shit, nobody cares. I'm like, hey everybody, you should probably look at this plagiarism problem. I've said it publicly, you can find it on my Twitter, all over the place. Nobody cared. People are like, oh sure, Brooke, you're just bitter. So then this big story comes out because I finally fucking found a reporter who was like interested, and he found shit that I hadn't even seen, like insane amounts of shit where I was just like, oh my God, and so he does this huge story and I'm just like appalled at the whole thing. And then those same fucking men, those same people who are like, oh, you sound crazy, start messaging me or texting me because some of them have my number. And they're like, I can't believe you helped David Mickelson cover up all that plagiarism, only to turn on him later when it was like expedient for you. And I'm like, for me, like this, none of this has been good for me. That's one of the, like, that was the set because Alex and the other ones jumped on this story, on that story as well, and used it as their own thing to cite or be like, oh, I told you Snopes wasn't trustworthy, and even their whatever. And that was always, which is why, of course, I obviously say this in the intro, but like why, of course, also I can't imagine Alex looking over at the former managing editor of Snopes in the room there and going, because like his number one enemy for years. It was pretty awesome. Yeah. I was like, I mean, the thing is, So here's the other thing. I found him very entertaining. I used to find him very entertaining. In the deposition, he was extremely entertaining. Like, the guy has a gift. He's charismatic. I can see exactly why people follow him. If he just wasn't so fucking destructive, that was all he needed to be. Just not destructive. Don't hurt people. Yeah. Don't, encourage people to hurt others. Don't encourage people to harass people who've lost loved ones. That was it. He could have been so entertaining. He would have made just as much money and not destroyed, gone out of his way to destroy democracy. It's really a shame, actually. It's depressing. And, I wonder what happened to him, or who paid him, or who got to him, or if he just chose to do this himself. I mean, it's...
Even as a person who used to, I wouldn't say I was a fan. I always was like, there's at first I've never been a 9/11 truther, and I find the entire fucking bullshit completely insane.
Oh, totally. But it was
it's also, again, like every one of these things according to a lot of the truthers, I'm part of the 9/11 conspiracy, just so you know. I'm actually on the blog. Well, of course you are. I mean, no offense, but I'm a Catholic, so I'm a white male Catholic, but I work for a Jew. Don't you understand? Like Greg Palast.
And you're talking to a Jew.
Yeah, I know.
You're talking to a fucking Roma Jew. So I'm like doubly bad. I'm like all stateless all the time. That's right.
The original anarcho. Anyway, but there was you can watch a kind of long. I mean, with most people, like I think now with the internet. You again, using Tim Pool as an example, you have the what I call the grift drift. You go from 2011 to current, and like I would have never believed that Tim Pool would have gone from kind of maybe not libertarian. I think definitely libertarian, maybe believing himself to be somewhat of an anarchist. Obviously in the political sense and that sort of thing.
We all know the suburban rich kid white boy anarchist types. Yeah. Like he just became the uber suburban rich boy anarchist type, right? Like
making contract deals with Vice that help fund his current disinformation network that he has.
King of the dipshits right there. Good job, Tim.
But like I would have never guessed that it would have gone this far, but also so quickly this way, because I mean, like there's a long time where it's kind of middling through a lot of like larger networks like Vice, and then was it Telemundo? I'm trying to remember which. There was a Telesur, definitely not Telesur. He worked briefly for a like NBC's Spanish language in that was moving into the United States. Univision, yeah, I think. And then went pretty much over the past 5 years. 5 or 6 years, it was just a complete 45-degree angle to slide to extremism. And now I don't see he's better at the language in a lot of ways, because he continually plays I was a liberal and now I'm this or whatever. Like the people who were like, liberals pissed me off so much, so I became a fascist. Like those type of people, I'm like, you were just a fascist all the time. Like
you were a fascist all
like liberals. Look, you want to know who gets more pissed off by liberals and leftists? Other leftists. Like I'm perpetually more angry at the left than I am at I'm obviously angry at the right all the time, but like I'm angry at the left because we can't get our shit together. And
well, that's it, right? Like the right values conformity. They value, they think that the individual is strengthened by the collective, whereas the left tends to think that like the collective is strengthened by the power of the individual. No, wait, I think I have it backwards. Shit, I can't remember. I wrote a whole paper on this and now it's gone. No, so sorry. The right wing tends to value conformity. The left wing tends to value individualism. Although conservatives say they gaslight
the complete opposite. Yeah.
They say they value freedom of speech. They say they value individuality. Jesus Christ, I'm a mess. But really it's just gaslighting. Just like, so I remember when all these fucking right-wing, like, I remember when the objectivists, like the weaponized, like Bircher libertarian types, when they started calling themselves liberals. And the reason they started saying that in like 2013 was they were like, well, I like kinky sex. I'm a liberal. And I'm like, okay, first of all, I didn't care about any of this. Like I didn't need to hear it, but you're going to tell me anyway. Cause but I mean, that particular little gaslighting like issue has been around for a long time. And it's always like anybody who's like, I'm a wacky liberal. I'm like,
Roger Stone is not a liberal because he likes group sex. I'm sorry.
Group sex parties. The man. Oh, no,
I feel like there were group sex parties, you know, on the Hindenburg back in the day. Like,
wow.
that's too early
Yeah.
anyway. But I'm sure the Nazis were very into that sort of stuff as well. But where do you think we are going from here? I mean, especially today, Ali Alexander got subpoenaed. Brendan Straka got subpoenaed. I mean, whether anything of this comes from this, but people are being outed for their connections, and Alex Jones is potentially financially ruined. He's been spending a lot of his time moving his money, I think, into his father's name. I mean, at least that's Knowledge. I want to give credit where credit due. That's Knowledge Fight's kind of theory, is that's why there's now Dr. Jones medical. Their supplements are called Dr. Jones medical supplements, and it's under his dad's name, who is technically the manager as well.
Yeah, his daddy is his business manager. Isn't that sweet?
I mean,
all
not
these
that,
people.
Yeah,
all these people
well,
are like,
I mean, his dad gave him the first.
Parents, dude.
Got him his first show. I mean, his dad's dentist. What is with dentists and eye doctors? What is going on? We need it.
I think it's because I actually have a theory about this.
Yeah.
I really do. Well, there's a couple things. So like, there's a really powerful, every time I say this, there's a very powerful dental lobby in this country.
Yes.
And there is also a very powerful vision care lobby in this country. And that's how they manage to keep a lot of the coverage out of, regular health insurance packages. Yeah. But also I think the kinds of like dentists and optometrists, well, first of all, their patient needs to be like immobilized. So they're probably like authoritarian, and like they got to get off on it. So but I also think it's because, and I got this years ago from a profile of, do you remember that woman who did a profile of Assad? She went to Syria and she did it. Actually, it wasn't about Bashir al-Assad. It was about
Assad's
his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vanity Fair.
The Rose of the Desert.
The what? I think it was Vanity Fair or Vogue, because they had like gorgeous photos of her and things like that.
Yes, that was the one. And then she got a bunch of grief for it, which she should have. But then she wrote a really interesting follow-up to it, where she's like, this is the story I tried to write, but they like turned it around and made me do something like a fluff piece. Yeah. And what she had said, because he was an ophthalmologist too, or an optometrist, he was an eye doctor. Yeah. And he had told her, she noted, he told me exactly what he was, when I asked him why he was an optometrist. And he said, it's clean, it's precise, and there's very little blood.
Coming from him is pretty terrifying, considering.
But I think that might be it. Like, it might be attracting those types of personality types because clean, precise, very little blood, and they're getting weaponized and made toxic in some kind of form or group or something. I don't know. Yeah. But there's some shared personality trait that's getting latched onto that is weaponizing, or sorry, I keep saying weaponizing, that's radicalizing these people. It's not just happening in a vacuum. Like, this stuff is, it's like that explore talent shit. I don't think that all these people are being paid or like they're paid actors or whatever. Yeah. What I do think is that actors, especially fuck up failed actors, have a very specific personality type, and they are all very vulnerable to the same sort of psychological manipulation. Yeah. And so they're all like, thinking they're doing this of their own free will.
And it feeds into, the sad thing is, like, with the fact that the number one star of the January 6th riot was oh my god, what's his name?
Viking guy?
Yes, Q Shaman. The Q Shaman was the number one guy, and he's I don't know, a failed actor, but just like I think failed actor has like a different implication. I don't know what, but anyway, I don't know why I'm giving this guy credit. I mean, like, on the other hand, he did a fantastic interview with Alex Jones, and he fucking took Alex Jones down. Like, if you haven't listened to that one, it is fucking amazing, because he knows Alex. He was a big fan of Alex, and then he just tears into Alex. It's fucking great. But the fact that he's part of it, and so many of these people and anytime they do something bad, we go, well, these guys are just crisis actors. I mean, obviously they have the thing, and they get to use this excuse. There's never anytime there's a right-wing shooter, there's anything like that happens, it's always a crisis actor, it's always a false flag, it's always something. This never ever happens, even though you can listen.
Weaponized unreality. Yeah.
And you build this reality where you don't have any belief that anything ever happens, basically.
What I think is going to happen to these people, because they've built a universe for themselves consisting of, impunity, basically. is that now they're about to face consequences, like bad consequences for their terrible actions. And they're freaking out, and it's fucking funny. So what we
they're in the find out period of the fucking around.
And what we need to do now is rub it in. We need to demoralize them. We need to make examples out of them. We need to make sure that people see exactly what the fuck happens to those among us who pull this shit. And I'm not talking about like the letter of the law either. I'm talking about shun these fucking people, mock these fucking people, spit on the ground when you see them, or, you know, not at them.
That's what happened after the Unite the Right rally, is that like we kind of all universally, like we found the people, outed them, got fired from their jobs.
And we need to keep that shit up. We need to keep it up forever, for the rest of their fucking lives.
And
I had this like come to Jesus with myself, or, you know, whatever. I'm an atheist. So like I had to come into myself moment, come into the universe moment. Where I guess agnostic, because the atheist crowd is rough. They fall for disinformation.
That's a whole different podcast we can talk about, but yeah, tell me about it.
Basically, I realized that when human lives are on the line, when human existence is on the line, which it is, by the way, all of this shit is distracting us from the real story that's happening, the real shit that's playing out around us right this second, which is the fact that our fucking climate is broken. We have not allowed. I'm sorry. I shouldn't blame us. It is not us. It is the greedy shitbag corporations who have been circulating disinformation campaigns to keep us from realizing how serious this shit was. I just read a story about California heat-related deaths being 6 times higher than the official reported toll. This is how fucked up shit is. This is how bad it is. You know, almost everyone I know is turning up with some autoimmune dysfunction who's around my age or a little bit older right now. And that's environmental. Like, that's triggered environmentally. So like, there's all this shit going on. That's the fucking real big lie. All of this is being done in the service of distracting us until it's too late, so these climate warlord types can take over. They're trying to weaponize climate change against us now that they think it's too late. And then they're going to hide out in their fucking New Zealand bunkers or float up in space like they've been demonstrating until the madding crowd kills each other off, or, you know, kills ourselves off or whatever. So we'll all be tamed and like ready for the boot when they come back down. Fuck that shit.
Because I mean, the problem is that you have unless you're actually like your day in day out job is this, whether it's a job or whether it's just this is what I do, like freelance or whatever, is that, but most people are, I mean, like I remember after right after the election, I was writing about, okay, so people were interviewing me about, well, what do you think their next step is now that Donald Trump lost? What do you think their next step is? And everyone expected all this violence happening on election day, and I was like, nothing's going to happen on election day. It's going to happen afterwards. And anyway, I was in Atlanta when January 6th happened, so you know how well my tone is. I mean, I guess let me, because we're way past the time that we said.
I better go in a second.
So I mean, like super short. Like what's next for Alex Jones, in your opinion?
I honestly don't know. I was thinking about that. Like, I don't know. I mean, so here's the thing. Like I don't include him in my, like, almost across the board, like they suck on the air. I actually think he's good on the air, but he's fucked it up and tainted himself so much that, you know, he's unhireable. Like, I don't know. So he's got to get out of the propaganda game one way or the other, obviously. After that, honestly, I don't really care. As long as he's out of the disinfo propaganda game, I don't really give a shit what he does. He can go live out his life for all I care. I'd like to see consequences, but those consequences are deplatform, you know, make sure that he cannot, like, my big thing is I want to see him deplatformed because he is pushing all this disinformation propaganda. And I want all of his assets that he has made through all of this given to the families. I want them to have everything of his, everything. Yeah. That's it. After that, I don't really care, because he has wrought so much on them. So, but other than that, like, I feel like that's sufficient punishment. That's restorative justice right there. Like, render him powerless, give everything to the people who have been harmed by him. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Take away his tank. Take away his tank and you know, melt it down or sell it for piecemeal or something like that. I think that would be fun. No, I think that's a good way to end. Brooke, where can people find you?
Oh, you know,
on the internet. I mean, not in like real life, like stalking or anything.
No, I know, but I'm always on the internet. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter generally at Brooklyn Marie. I am neither from Brooklyn nor named Marie. It's an old nickname of mine. It was actually my in-laws. They used to call me that because they've stopped recently for some reason, but they used to be like, oh, your name shouldn't be Brooke, it should be Brooklyn. You should be Brooklyn Marie. So my family's like, Brooklyn Marie. My name is not Brooklyn Marie. And I'm also not from Brooklyn, but Brooklyn Marie. And that's pretty much where I'm always at, just like harassing politicians and disinformation purveyors until they block me.
Yeah.
Because I'm just so fucking sick of it. Like all these fucking people are out there like spreading lies with impunity, and they're getting people killed, they're getting people hurt. So they need somebody to tell them to fuck off. If nothing else, they need me to tell them that they are liars and that they need to stop. Like, I know that it's not much, but what they're doing, I'm sorry, I have one more thing to say. What they're doing is these disinformation purveyors, whoever they are, you know, and their allies, whoever they are all fucking with our stories. Humankind depends on stories. Stories are how we adapt. They're how we tell ourselves how to behave. They're how the story we tell about ourselves to ourselves, you know, is really important in how we react to things. The stories that we tell to ourselves about other people and to society at large, those are really important. They're tainting our stories. They're tainting how we look at each other, and they're tainting how we look at ourselves. They're doing it through myriad ways. And that is the part that needs to stop, because when you fuck with a story, when you fuck with humanity's stories, you're fucking with all of it. Don't let them do it. Don't let those assholes tell you what you are. And so when I see this stuff, because this is a war of ideas, because it's a war of info. We're in an info war. The info war, thank you.
Right all along. God damn it.
It's a war on for your mind. That's actually what it is. And in fact, I think that's why he got co-opted, because he said that kind of stuff. It was much more useful to just co-opt somebody saying that, so that everybody saying this stuff sounded like him. Yeah. You know, we actually do have this going on. So what I try to do is say publicly, like refute and rebut it, but do it with like a personality, so that people know, like, you can be sassy. You don't have to be a boring, like, actually, that's not right because you said Minnesota and you meant Minneapolis, and that's totally wrong. You're spreading misinformation. It's so boring. It's so ineffective. And then all these fucking smug, like, disinfo people let themselves be sucked into bullshit anyway. Like right now, there's some anti-woman misogyny shit going on where I'm seeing all these disinfo people getting sucked into like all these public arguments about women. And it's like, you fucking morons, you fucking idiots, you fucking... Okay, I'm the only woman in the United States, as far as I know, who has a fairly high profile anti-disinformation site, fact-checking site, whatever. So I see this shit. And what they're doing is whoever's doing this, the far right, I assume, because they're getting more sophisticated, they're leveraging this existing misogyny that this almost exclusively male industry has, and they're using it to run out talented, outspoken women. I'm not including myself in this, because fuck them. I don't give a shit. Like, they can fucking try it, whatever they want. Fuck you. But
we're doing this too long to like get run out by anything. Yeah.
We've fucking gone up against the fucking cartels and the Nazis. Like, after this, a bunch of like punanis who are trying to fucking like tell me that I suck on, like, you know, as a fact checker, they can go ahead, you know, whatever. So they're like all, you know. Sorry, but it's true also. But I'm also watching it being like playing out in public forums. And so I feel like that needs to be called attention to, because if you are dealing with unexamined misogyny, that's my dog, sorry. If you're dealing with unexamined misogyny or unexamined racism or unexamined anything like that, it is a vector. You don't need to own it publicly and like tell everybody you're really sorry or whatever. I don't give a shit. No woman gives a shit if you've been a misogynist and changed your ways. Like, fucking shut up. Just, you know, treat us like people and you'll be fine. But you don't have to do that. Just if that's, you know, your issue. Or you don't have to say, oh, I have these racist thoughts. Nobody cares. But know this about yourself and pay attention to it, so that when the time comes, you won't be sucked into some bullshit drama disinformation campaign with your pre-existing unexamined misogyny and or racism and or whatever. Because I've seen that shit happen all day, all night for the last 2 weeks, and it is really embarrassing. And I'm actually watching the far right research world like shit a brick over its own stupid bullshit right now, and I'm just like, come on, you guys, like, get your shit together. You should know better by now. But that's the kind of thing where you're talking about like the stories that we tell each other about ourselves, the stories that we tell each other about in ourselves about what we are. Like, they're fucking with those stories, and it's working. So stop letting it work, you people.
That is a great place to end. Thank you so much, Brooke, for.
All right, I better get back to my editing.
Yes. My favorite thing about recording with you is I can ask for 30 minutes, and then it always ends.
I know, and then my writers are like, "What the fuck? Where have you been?"
Yeah. Anyway, I'll forcibly force you to go back to work. Thanks again. We'll obviously talk soon.
Okay, take care of yourself.
Yep, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you soon.
Thank you so much for listening. If you're hearing this, I thank you for listening to the whole thing. I know that Brooke and I tend to go on and go down different rabbit holes and conversations, and sometimes it's probably an inside joke or something. And for that, I apologize. But I hope you had some level of fun learning some weird conspiracy, far-right extremist things. And that's kind of my goal for this podcast, is that everything's not going to be depressing. Everything's not going to be end of the world times type of thing. Unless, of course, it is actually the end of the world times cults or something that I'm going to cover, that I'm going to delve into. I don't know where all of this is going to lead. I did not think that a year ago or 2 years ago that I'd be covering the anti-vax movement. But here we are. I'm learning all about all the different YouTube doctors and everything. But anyway, thanks again for doing it. If you feel so obliged, if you could head over to patreon.com/ZDRoberts and kick in $1 a month. I'm going to try to start producing some extras and that sort of thing based around this podcast. There's also all my other kind of work that I do, that I post there, interviews that I do, both that I am the interviewer or the interviewee. Going to post kind of like longer stuff there a little bit more aggressively. And then there's also the podcast I do every once in a while with my good friend Aaron Sinek out in Chicago, and we just kind of rant about politics and that sort of thing. But yeah, so patreon.com/ZDRoberts, and thank you again.